Hello. Today I'm back at it, diving into AI and RPA. Now, I've covered these areas before, but there's still much more that hasn't been explored really, or unique ways to think about these topics. So, what does it mean when we talk about bots and practical use cases, and how can we harness what we know and use that to establish some standards? Well, to help me explore these themes around AI and RPA, today, I'm joined by Olivier Gomez, or the OG. Now, Olivier is the co founder and CEO of Intelligent Automation Corp. And they are experts and pioneers in the field of intelligent automation, hyper automation, and artificial intelligence. So, where are all these things headed? And is there a different way to look at these things? So, stay tuned and find out. Well, hey, thank you so much. Welcome to the show. It's a pleasure to be chatting with you. And really, a lot of territory we could cover on this couple of themes and topics here of AI and automation, robotic process automation, and the like. But hey, before we dive into all that, I was wondering if you could just introduce yourself and give us a sense of the OG, what you're all about, and where do you hail from and so forth.
Sure. So thanks for having me
Yeah.
here today. That's a pleasure. So my name is Olivier. I'm French. People call me OG. I'm not
Yeah.
going to go there. That's my nickname.
Yeah, don't worry.
Yeah, I've been around for a while, right? I'm kind of a pioneer of this industry. I've been doing automation forever, and yeah, I think there's quite a few things happening lately as we evolve away from an emerging industry into a more mature industry, and as we expand the scope, to add a brain to the bot, right? So there's quite a few things happening, quite exciting.
All right, yeah, I like that phrase there that you said, to add the brain to the bot, because excuse me, we talk about that phrase, intelligent automation, and it's so previously automation was more thought of as just a set of steps, go through this, and this, but now we can infuse AI and some other things with it, machine learning, that automation can get quite a bit smarter than it used to be. So yeah, I'd love to dive into that a bit more, but I'd love to kind of kick off with a question here, just to you kind of hinted a bit of it, but how do you think automation has changed the way we work? I mean, it's really, it's really taken quite a bit for humans to get used to the fact of automation is there, and some people still feel threatened by it from a job standpoint, or task standpoint of what they do, and I myself and my colleagues, we've talked a lot about how automation can help with the mundane tasks, but in essence, though, if you take a step up, it's really changed about how we approach work and what we do and what we accomplish. What do you think? What's your take on this? Is how automation has really changed the way we work?
Yeah, and actually, I think this is not the first time we see some kind of revolution in the industry. We've seen over the last 100, 200 years many revolution. And
Okay.
typically, people are always concerned about anything changing, and there's always a good side and bad side to it, right? The initial concern when you look at software automation is that obviously, this is bad news. This is going to take our job away. So everyone talks about it. At the end of the day, every time we've seen a revolution, an industrial revolution, the outcome of it is, yes, some jobs are going away, but net, there's actually more opportunity than bad news. So for me, when I look at, the people who are concerned about the change, which is very natural, right? A lot of humans are concerned about any changes. I would say this is very typical. This is business as usual. It's just another wave. Okay, maybe it's a bit different. There's some AI built in now. It's a bit more difficult to see versus physical robots, the one we have in factories to build
Mhm.
cars and stuff, right? So it's a bit less tangible, but it's pretty much the same. Yes, it's disruptive. Yes, it's taking away some of the activity, but at the end of the day, we have a lot of creativity built in our brain, and this is going to
Mhm.
unleash that, right? This is going to unleash time, unleash our capabilities, and at the end of the day, people will realize that this is all good news. I don't see anything negative in there at all.
Right. I mean, you talked about the disruptive nature of automation, and I like the simple example you gave as far as the robots that are used with building the cars. I mean, I'm sure when the first robot came in to help with car production, same mentality happened. I mean, the
Yep.
robots have been used for decades now within auto manufacture and other areas of other machines that are built and so forth. But yeah, and I think what it did was it shifted the things that humans can focus on. It's
Yep.
more important things. Like you said, us humans with the brain should be more creative with what we do and more looking at things more critical and things that the bots are really not there quite yet. On some of this stuff. Yes, with AI and a lot of data, it can surface some good information and some patterns that maybe humans wouldn't have spotted. But humans are great at spotting anomalies and other things that we just know from experience in other areas that AI is not quite there yet. So yeah, I think it is shifting in the way we work, and but it's you know, I think you and I are kind of on the same page as far as
Yep.
where things are headed and so forth. But I was chatting with a friend of mine the other day on AI, and I don't know if you know him, Jim Domagani, and he over at AI Multiple, and we were chatting all things AI, and and it was great conversation of what's going on in artificial intelligence world, and but something that really came out of that was that AI's come a long way, but it still has a long way to go. It's almost still this new frontier of untapped potential, if you will, and there's many surprising use cases out there. I didn't know if you had come across any surprising use cases or things in your world, if you will.
Yeah. And actually, what's really interesting is to also understand that uh, this ecosystem of technology
Hmm.
is actually growing by the day. So what it means is that not only we have many use cases available to us today, some of them are doing things that frankly human cannot do. And this is
Hmm.
also not just a human versus bot type of conversation. It is also what can we do with those technologies that human cannot do today? Speed of
Hmm.
action, saving life, going into areas where it's actually very dangerous for human to go. For
Hmm.
example, if there's a fire, if there's a something to check that is in a toxic environment, right?
Hmm.
Uh, we are able, if you look at healthcare, right, we are able now to detect, I give you a practical example, skin cancer, right, with 99.999% accuracy, where
Wow.
before, we had a lot of difficulty and human
Right.
were making mistakes. So it's not just a bot versus human, it's also what it is that we can do extra. And as I was saying, the ecosystem keeps growing. So we had the physical bot, we had the RPA bot, which is basically execution engine, and now we are starting to add very interesting categories of technology. So the brain, AI, whatever you want to call it, ML,
Hmm.
but there's also vision. We are able
Hmm.
to convert a lot of the analog world into digital to be able to process that, starting with a sheet of paper that you receive like an invoice. And there's also language. There's also language, right? There's
Right.
also all the chatbot, the voice bot, all the NLP technology. And when you combine all this, and you see the amount of startups that are making progress and innovating there, the
Hmm.
ecosystem is really booming. But back to what you said, right? That the number one challenge nowadays with all those tools is to know what to do with them and to come up with the right use cases so we can deliver the value, right? And this is really where I see the industry evolving away from it's an emerging industry. There's plenty of new shiny objects all over the place. People get
Right.
excited about a new feature.
Yeah.
We are starting to industrialize all this, and we are starting to be really serious about the use cases, being able to introduce best practices so that we can really get the outcome and really know what to do with the technology. Because sometimes, frankly, people are a bit lost, right? They don't really know how to use,
Mhm.
when to use, and what outcome to expect.
Yeah, that's a great point, and that's come up quite a bit in some discussions as far as it started off with this unknown thing. It harkens back to when the cloud was first emerging as a thing for people. It was really this nebulous concept that a lot of people are, I don't know what it means. How do I make sense of it, and how do I even harness and use it? So to your point of this is where AI is headed and automation is headed, it's it's the same principle here is
Yeah.
that they're now making practical use of it. And that's the word I've used a lot lately is practical use. A lot of people are still on the fence of, well, I don't understand AI. Well, it's okay that you don't understand it. It's time to get educated, but there are a lot of practical use cases out there. And I like the examples you gave as far as dangerous environments that, these bots or, if you think about it from a drone capability and using AI to kind of detect through machines of with a vision, like you said, capability of things that are going on, whether it's harmful or safe for anyone to walk into an environment. So, and then in the healthcare frontier, there's remote surgeries that are taking place and great detection that's going on, like you mentioned with cancer. So, it's how we harness that is going to make the difference. And the one phrase that we use a lot around here is it's the humans plus AI or the humans plus technology. It's there's a phrase I saw. I think it was UiPath had. It was a bot for every human. So it's really like a companion or assistant coming along and helping you with some things. Like you said, speed is really another area. But another thing that's come up a lot with AI, especially, is the concern around ethics and bias. Because there's still, well, you hinted to it, is that it's not really being harnessed fully yet. Uh, so what's your take on like the ethics and bias that's still coming about and being seen inside of AI?
Yeah. So what I believe is that any new technology uh, needs to be uh, understood and industrialized, and then
Hmm.
governance will be applied to it. Right. We are if you look at the MySpace, right, the intelligent automation, which is the combination of AI and automation, we are still in a phase where it is uh, highly uh, distributed. It's highly scattered. There's not a lot of consistency.
Hmm.
It's not yet fully industrialized. So people are doing things left and right their own way. Service providers are coming up with, a way to handle the technology, but there is not yet standards, best
Hmm.
practices, and governance in place. And it's very normal. Those will be established once the industry becomes more mature, once the industry gets consolidated, once we start having, good understanding of what is possible, so we can
Hmm.
basically standardize it, right? So governance will be required, but
Well, it's
at
kind
that
of like
stage, yeah, go ahead.
it's kind of like the GDPR that's come about with data privacy.
Yeah,
The standards that Europe rolled out a couple of years ago or so. I know here in the United States, California's rolled it out. I think Virginia's got one. Other states are rolling out their own variations, but the standards are coming.
yeah.
From a data privacy perspective, and to your point, yeah, that's yeah. Once the maturity is there and kind of people grapple with what can be standardized, I think is really what's going to be the question of the day.
Yes,
If you think about it.
and as you said, I think the number one uh, challenge at the moment
Hmm.
is really to understand the applicability of those technologies. Right now, we are still uh, stuck with the art of of the possible, right? What is
Mm,
possible today?
right.
What is conceptually possible? We will evolve, and we will start be we will become more and more tangible, more and more practical, more and more applicable. This is going to become real. People, it will be commoditized. People will have a clear understanding, almost like an off-the-shelf,
Mm,
type of implementation
hmm.
of those capability. And then it will be a no-brainer for people, what it is that we want to standardize, what it is that we want to govern. But at that stage, we are not yet there. Most of the people are still struggling to understand what is possible with those technology, right? So it
Hmm.
takes some time for the industry to come up with, some best practices, some off-the-shelf solution for people, to basically commoditize the intelligent automation space.
Well, it kind of reminds me a bit of what's happening over in the low code, no code area a bit. When it first was introduced, it was almost the Wild West, and the concern with the what I'll call the professional developers versus citizen developers was really strong because they felt like, well, wait a minute, that there's no standardization there. They can kind of just create what you want, and there's really no governance behind it. And how do we fit into this equation? So it was a lot of unknown, but now these tools have matured enough to where they can work together.
Yes,
Professional developers can create some, for the lack of a better word, components that
yes,
the citizen developers can just drag and drop in there. And those components have their corporate or their company sort of standardization of things and how they, you know, handle data privacy can all be built into these components. And then it's just a matter of the creativity on the end of the citizen developer to create those apps. So along those same lines, I think we're going to come to this crossroads of the unknown and the craziness of it's almost like things are being developed, like you said, it hinted to, is that, and they're in silos. This company's doing a great thing here, another one's doing a great thing there around AI. But I think once they get to that standardization of all the things that AI can do across the board, then it's going to really harken back to the governance of rules and regulations, if you will,
yes,
because that's really coming out from a lot of the larger CEO or CEOs of larger companies is concern around ethics and bias and making sure that we handle AI in a governed way. To your point.
yes. And I would say risk. You can add risk to it,
Oh
and
yeah.
and
Hmm.
and, and whether it is uh, at the level of a country or at the level of a large corporation, governance will happen. The point being here, back to what um, back to what you were saying, is that it takes time. It takes time for things to fall into place, right? We are still today uh, technology centric, tool centric. We
Hmm.
talk about features. We talk about innovation at the product level, and we need to evolve away into a tool agnostic type of conversation, and we need
Mm.
to move
Okay.
into use cases type of conversation, right? So
Hmm.
yes, you can implement using this technology or that technology. At the end of the day, yes, some technology are maybe better there, or some others are better here. The price, the features. But if you move into a technology tool agnostic type of conversation, you abstract all that ecosystem and you talk about the use cases, then you are able to create policies and create governance, and you can apply that, regardless of the tool. And that's really,
Hmm.
where we need to go. You also mentioned, the citizen developer versus professional developer. For me, those are things that are going to coexist. If you look at MySpace, again,
Hmm.
intelligent automation, you have two main areas that are important. One is the personal productivity space.
Okay.
Microsoft is going there and
Hmm.
trying to help people on their desktop be more so a bot for every human. That's
Mhm.
the personal productivity space, and that is the perfect space for low code, no code, and citizen developer. You create a bot on your desktop to help you do your stuff, right? And then on the other side, you have enterprise automation, things that are large scale, large impact, large outcome. And there you might not want to have citizen developer. You might want to have, proper governance, proper COE, proper developer, proper
Mhm.
methodology, right? So the point being here is we are putting things one against the other, but instead we should be looking at this is, the citizen developer is a perfect fit for the personal productivity type of automation, where the
Mhm.
professional developer are going to be a perfect fit for the enterprise type of automation.
Yeah, it's and I like how you phrase that as far as the coming together, and collaboration is really the key here. It shouldn't be the one against the other. I mean, I did highlight that early on when those low code. It was, I think, it was the fact that they just didn't know how they fit into that equation. Really, the pro devs when these low code tools came about a few years back. So yeah, it's going to be that collaboration at the end of the day, and in the same way with AI and RPA as things mature more and more. Um, Something I'd love to kind of end here a bit, kind of running up against time here. It's been a wonderful conversation, Olivier, but I'm just curious if you see any new trends that are coming on the horizon, and from your perspective, as far as in the AI and automation, something new that, or maybe unexpected that you've come across recently.
Yeah. So my focus is really to try to analyze the industry, abstract
Mhm.
the tool, and look at the trend that are really agnostic from technology, right? And sometimes
Mhm.
people have difficulty to understand that, but the key here is, I think we are entering a space where people really want to understand how to utilize the technology. And what we start
Mhm.
to see is that people are expecting return on their investment. They're expecting an improvement of the time to value, because right now, up till now, very few companies have really scaled the automation, the intelligent automation, and people now entering a phase where they want to scale, they have to scale. Their company strategy is, leveraging and design around the implementation and the scaling of intelligent automation. So what we are going to see moving forward is, a lot less I play with technology, a lot more I'm really serious about scaling. And what we are going to
Okay.
see is people demanding an improvement on the time to value. And people will start focusing on how do we make that happen. So yes, there will be
Mhm.
new tools, there will be new features, but really what's going to happen here is, okay, how do we help 14,000? How do we help all the employee in the world truly get the expected outcome from those technology, truly understand what to do with this technology? And those are not technology related issue. Those are everything else, right? The
Mhm.
process, the people, as we mentioned, the governance, the use cases, the best practices, the policies, all of that is starting to crystallize. We see, initiative from IEEE, starting to create some standard. We see, for example, in my own company, we are putting together a very large library of use cases to help our
Mhm.
client, implement faster,
Oh, right.
understand
Yeah.
faster what to select, menu-based type of approach instead of very very long discovery. This is what's going to happen. It's going to become easier and faster for people to consume the technology and get the outcome.
I like how you highlighted that expectation is shifting, towards the quicker return to value, or time to value, and that speaks to something that we've noticed of late is that time to value and ROI speaks to the how the CFO is viewing things, and the office of the CFO has really um, transformed and shifted over, if you will, over the past few years. I've seen a shift to this is that instead of being more transactional focused, they're becoming more strategic focused.
Yes.
To your point of those expected outcomes with technology, that's an enabler inside our organizations, and how quick can we get there? So it's yeah, It's exciting to see that these trends are heading that way, because I think that that will help ease the uncertainty that a lot of people have around a lot of these tools. You know, what do we do with them, and how do we harness them, and so forth. So I'm glad to see that that trend's coming
It
around.
yes, and to close here,
Yeah.
it will simply democratize. We have been
Hmm.
talking about those things inside our bubble of geek and
Yeah.
technologist, right?
Hmm.
And now the rest of the world is starting to understand, and they will be a lot less afraid when they see that, it's just yet another revolution, as we had many revolution in the past, and this is all for
Hmm.
the good, for the best. And the outcome, again, as I said at the beginning, will be more job and better job for people, right? This is a good news conversation, and it will be more obvious for the rest of the world when they start seeing, the practical implementation of those tools.
That's right. And that's a good way to kind of end this out, is where things are headed, the practical uses of these tools. Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Olivier. It's been a pleasure chatting with you and being a guest on the episode here. And I'll put some of the things we touched on in the show notes, the links out to some things. If you have some things with, like you mentioned, those library of information, if you have
Sure.
that handy, I can put that in the show notes as well for folks to take a look at and get more familiar with. But thank you again for joining me today. And we'll have to do this again sometime in the future.
Sure, anytime. It was a
All right.
pleasure.
Thank you.